Hola, bon dia from Portugal. Munson here on Positive Echo Podcast, episode 20, Gary.
Who'd have believed it?
Well, quite incredible, quite incredible. How are you today?
I'm very good, very good. Yeah, we're doing an early or a relatively early morning recording today.
Yes.
It's very different because I don't have my normal sort of 0% beer in my hand at 9 o'clock in the morning.
You could do if you want.
So I've got the coffee, decaf.
Okay.
But to you?
You're so rock and roll. 0% beer, caffeine-free coffee. Really?
Well, I've already had the 2 full-fat coffees, so
oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Right. Well, the reason we're here this morning is we've had some complex diarising to do, and it's our great pleasure, isn't it, to talk to Stephen Sonsino this morning. So, how did you meet Stephen? What's the backstory here before we bring him on?
It's we were talking, Stephen and I, a few weeks back, and we think it's almost 20 years since we were both in a group called the London Technology Network. And back in the day, I was an academic and Dean of Enterprise for St. George's University in London. And part of that job was to encourage academics, researchers, to reach out to see if businesses could license some of their basic research and bring it to the world, rather than simply just publish it. And once it's published, no one can patent it, no one can exploit it, no one can bring it to the real world. And Stephen gave, I think it was 3 or 4, maybe more, workshops, really intriguing workshops to this group. And I thought, this is a guy I've got to get to know. And off and on over the 20 years, we keep sort of meeting and discussing things. Yes. And one of those subjects was legacy, and now the positive echo. So Perfect. I thought, here's a guy who leaves a positive echo wherever he goes. We should have a conversation. So
let's bring him on. Let's bring him on. Perfect. That your paths should cross in this way. So a nice big round of applause. Stephen, good morning to you.
And good morning to you. Good morning, good evening. Whatever, you're in Portugal, so it's.
I'm in Portugal. Yeah, same time zone as you. Same time. Let's put it. Let's make the positive echo sandwich. So you're between us now, Stephen, and it's great to meet you. And you're in London, are you? You're in the UK at least.
Yes. Interestingly, I'm in Norfolk. Yeah, during the COVID pandemic, we decided we could kind of work anywhere. So Jackie and I moved from London, so we live in Norfolk, and that's what we're doing at the moment.
How lovely. Well, thank you for joining us from Norfolk. I think Gary has a special way of introducing people, which is to get them to introduce themselves, right, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, why should I do all the work?
Yes, yeah. It's good we just have a coffee.
This is no surprise to Stephen, because I said we would be doing this just before we came on air. So Stephen, take a few minutes to give us an idea of who you are, bit of history, and what you're up to now.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And what a fantastic title. Positive Echo is so, it is uplifting, and I think I love the idea of echo, and it's something that I have been doing for an enormous number of years, Gary. When we first met, the thing that I was researching and was looking at is, how do people leave a positive echo? I wasn't calling it a positive echo. I was using this idea of remarkable leadership. And so that's sort of become important to me. So what I do, what I find is the thing when I look back, what I seem to have done is written an awful lot of books in a number of different areas, and perhaps we'll come on to why I write those books later on, because I think that's significant in the context of positive echo. The other thing I do, and I don't think you know this, Gary, is I make family videos. So my dad and my dad was a photographer. My father-in-law, Brian, made home movies, and they were really good. It was in the days of Super 8, those of you who can remember Super 8, and he would literally cut the films up and make an amazing documentary. There was one of Falmouth, a seaside town in the UK. And looking at it now, you can see the Ford Anglias, cars that no longer exist. You can see far fewer of those cars. Real documentary style. He did close-ups. He did midway shots. And so I've tried to carry that on. So when my son Chris, who's now 30, was a baby, I bought a video camera, and the first ones were just awful because you try and capture everything. But now I have a grandson. Chris has a son. And I find myself trying to capture moments because I know, my father-in-law said as he was passing away that he thought his legacy was not the work he'd done as an amazing journalist and businessman, but his family films. And that was so touching. And so in a small way, Gary, those are the things that I have done that I will leave as my positive echo. The books capturing other people's stories and the family films for our family. I think I've done about 100-something family films now, which is, that is insane, really. But I love doing it. It's wonderful to see people's faces and to know that in time when my son, our children are looking back at their lives, that they will have a piece of us to look at, a piece of them growing up, which often we don't have. I'm going to shut up now because you're talking about my favorite subjects. Sorry.
Look, we can be doing podcasts on really meaningful things and conflict, but it's also about showing the other side of people, not just the public side. So thank you. And we now have a better idea. I remember Peter Sellers, film actor. He had tens of thousands of family documentary films that he made. It seems to be a certain kind of person who wants to be the observer and not always somebody who's part of it. And without those observers, the things that happen in our lives, they get lost. So brilliant. I love the concept. It's a bit late for me to start now. She's 29, my daughter. But it's a lovely idea. But back to the more, not serious stuff, but a rounded view of you. You're also, when I met you, were a professor of the London Business School. Yeah. So we have professional depth as well as human depth in Stephen Sonsino. I don't actually know how you ever got to be a professor at the London Business School.
And the gap suggests that you want me to tell you, which is a very, very silly thing, Gary. So I was a journalist in a former life because I couldn't get into biochemistry. So just going backwards, I was a scientist. I studied pigmentation in flamingos, crabs, tomatoes, vitamin A in the human eye. It's what makes us see. And how vitamin A is formed was really important to me as a kid. As a young person, I wanted to make a difference. And so I went into science. But in the 70s and 80s, nobody was funding the kind of work that I wanted to do. Cancer research hadn't really taken off. AIDS hadn't been invented. It wasn't a thing. And so the medical sciences really didn't have much support. So I went into journalism to report on science. And the very first piece I wrote was a piece on taste buds for new scientists. So I always kind of wanted to communicate what I'd learnt about really interesting things. So as a journalist, that's what I did, talked to other people, and then became I did an MBA at Cranfield. And before I'd finished my MBA, they hired me to join the strategy faculty. I was sort of late into the MBA world. And so I guess they saw something in me that they thought they could use. So I spent a couple of years there and then moved on to London Business School. And one of the things that I think intrigued the people at LBS was I seem to have a good rapport with younger people, with men and women who were trying to find their way and weren't clear about what it was they wanted to do. And so I took over the Emerging Leaders Program at London Business School, one of their 3 flagship open programs. And that was also a learning journey. And that's where, for me, the idea of being remarkable actually took hold. This idea of what I called remarkable leadership. The word remarkable is actually quite remarkable, because to be remarkable, oh wow, you literally remark on something, you tell somebody about it. And in marketing terms, we talk about word of mouth is the best form of marketing. Having someone else tell the world about you or what you're doing or your product or your service or whatever it might be, that is the thing that we strive for. And so it occurred to me that to help people articulate what their purpose in life was, what it was they were there to do, they needed to think about that, because it didn't need to be just do the day job or, whatever your job description spells out. This is what you need to do. You need to do that in a remarkable way, in a way that is so different, big, unusual, new, insightful, that other people would talk about it. And so I think I tried to help at London Business School young men and women in the early part of their careers to think, what can I add? What is my purpose? How do I describe, or how do I help them to be more remarkable? And I just want a little aside, and then I'll shut up. But some people said, you just do what you do, and other people will decide. And I think there's an idea about your conscious echo, to use your word, or an unconscious echo. Some people will do amazing work, and it just happens to be at the pinnacle, at the edge, and it's amazing, and people talk about it. But some people don't know what it is they want to do or what they want to stand for. And so they need to think about it consciously. So I think there's sometimes an issue for people, I don't know what I want to be known for, or I don't know what my echo will be. And that's why your podcast is so fantastic, because it allows people gives people permission to think consciously and intentionally about what it is they want to do. Is this making any kind of sense?
Absolutely, yeah. Can I jump in there, Gary?
Of course, Cole.
Because I'm really fascinated by what it might be, the DNA of remarkability, because we seem to be making a bit of a transition, and I hope we're part of that, Gary, of the idea of remarkability, of being extraordinary as a kind of competition. So some people are more remarkable than others, which is a bit unfair, and I think we're developing a different understanding of that. The important thing is how people discover their own remarkableness or extraordinariness, not in relation to other people, but like in their own sort of personal best, as it were, and what tools are available for that to happen, and what resources are available. And you are, I think, Stephen, it's fair to say you would be one of those resources. Clearly, you have a track record. You've got form for that. You have helped these people who weren't quite sure what it was, couldn't put their finger on it. You've located the DNA of remarkability, have you, for people? Is that how you've enabled people in the setting you described?
It's quite a nice way to think about that. What is it that enables remarkability? And there are two and a half fundamental. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Two things. One is being visual. A lot of people, write emails, memos, whatever, and it's the words that matter. And that's fantastic, because their brains work in the way of words. And especially if you're an expert in something, you want to share the words. But actually, what's more memorable is something visual. So this idea of how can you make what it is you do visual that people can share? And we see it now on the internet with social media. It's the memes, it's video, it's short form. So being visual is one way of being remarkable. The other piece of that, and this is tougher, is I think people need to touch emotions. perhaps it's about revealing emotions initially, but there's something about the emotionality, the emotional nature of what it is you're trying to do. So those are the two biggies if you want to package something. In a sense, it's about creating, I suppose, a personal manifesto for who you are and what you do, and how do you, what form does that manifesto take? How can you make it easy for people to remark on you? I don't know if that makes any sense. The half bit is the story. What is the story that you're trying to tell? And I suppose I've studied narrative and the way we tell stories, and I'm sure you guys are expert at this, but the idea that you can't just give away PowerPoint bullet points of your business or knowledge or personal life. Nobody's interested in flat statements. There has to be a story, and we can talk about story as long as you like, but I'm just going to pause there. So those would be my 2.5 things. How do you create visuals around what it is you do? How do you touch people's emotions or share your emotions through stories?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I'd like to at least mention, whether it's a question or not, I'm not sure. It seems to me that everything we do that's of any importance, the final decision we make is an emotional one. Even if it's what car do I buy? In the end, it's can I fall in love with that particular car and that brand? And it's about trust. So that's the final arbiter. The other thing is, and I'm sure I've said this before on the podcast, and I may have said it to you before, is I believe that everyone was born with the capacity to be remarkable, the capacity to be wise. But our upbringings and society gaslight us and make us believe we aren't remarkable and we aren't wise. So we get used to it and we just work within that tram line. And what I get from you, and you're partly to blame for this, in a very nice way.
Click off.
Those workshops 20-ish years ago opened my mind to what could be possible for me, because until that time, I was a jobbing academic, happy with being a jobbing academic. But somehow a door, a portal opened, and there was another world out there, the world of business, the world of bringing blue skies research into a real application that made a difference to people's lives. So you help peel some of that societal suppression. And what I see in the work that you're still doing with helping people write books, it's helping them see, well, actually, if I follow this path, I can reveal some of my remarkable, some of my wisdom. And the more of us that try to help people do that, the more remarkable people will pop up that we didn't know existed. So, yeah, remarkable.
And what is your methodology then, Stephen, for people who are getting the gist of our conversation? I think, which is like, yeah, okay, maybe there is a bit more scope and capacity here. I'm inspired. I do, yeah. I was coasting along quite nicely, but actually, yeah, I think I'll do what these guys are talking about and think about legacy, positive echo. What's your suggestion to people who are kind of scratching that surface in the way that Gary did 20 years ago?
I think there's a couple of things that immediately spring to mind, and one is to ask yourself questions, and Gary, I don't know if you remember this, but the thing that I remember that you remember, the thing you said to me in the corridor afterwards as we were leaving, is, and I think it was almost the first question, the first exercise, the first slide that we did. I almost always start with asking people 3 questions, and I think, Carl, this is germane to what you're asking. I suggested that as academics, as business people, we also had to help others around us to step up into that new place. And the questions, Gary, that seemed to resonate with you were these. I suggested that we ask the question, you bump into somebody in the corridor, you can see they're down. You meet somebody, and the first thing you say to a friend or somebody who's looking down is you say, "What's up? Que paso?" And it's about getting their story, get the other person's story. What's up? And they tell you their story, and you listen like crazy to elaborate or help them elaborate. And then at some point, you try and help them to articulate, well, so what? What are the options open to you in this situation? Again, not telling people what to do, not being didactic about that, but helping them to explore the place where they are. And after a while, they come up with, I could do this, I could do that, I could do the other. And then at some point, we have to help people make a decision about what to do. So then the question is, well, what now? What are you going to do now as a result of this thinking that you've been doing? So Carl, there's something about how can we turn those questions on ourselves? How do we ask ourselves questions that help us, if we're stuck or if we're undecided about what it is we need to do, we need to go through a process of self-reflection. And so the questions I have are versions of, what's up, so what now? But they are slightly different. So you come to a certain point in your life and you ask yourself, and I ask people, what questions are you asking yourself? So these are not my questions. They're my synthesis of the questions people seem to be asking. And the first question is, did I live? Did I truly live? Did I truly live? And if you take away nothing from the short time that we're together today, please, make a note of this, add it into your phone, whatever. Did I truly live? Am I truly living is a better version of that. Because I think often people aren't. I think people have stopped. And they're waiting for something, and I don't know what that is. So did I truly live is a question I ask people when I'm trying to help them articulate the journey that they've come on. But it can also be present tense, or am I truly living? Second question, did I love? That's what people are asking themselves. Did I truly love what it was I was doing, the people I was with, family? There's all sorts of things buried in that question. Did I truly love? Am I truly loving? If you want to convert that to present tense, to now, that's a really tough question, actually. And we could go down that rabbit hole if you want. And the one that is most specifically around, my concept of legacy, at least, is this question, which people say, did I matter? Did I truly make a difference? We as humans, I think, want to make a difference. We want to matter, I think. Am I truly mattering? Am I making a difference? Because these questions set up a sort of potential difference about where I am now and where I'd like to be in the future. And that, I think, that potential difference is what prompts us or motivates us or drives us to want to do something differently. So those would be my sort of starting point. Did I truly live? Did I truly love? And did I matter? Do I truly love? Am I truly living? Am I truly loving? And am I mattering? Am I making a difference? I'll just pause there. Is that making any sense as a start point?
Yeah, those are extraordinary questions, are they not, Gary? And the what comes up in that are perhaps the blockages, aren't they? The why we discover why those things might not be happening by asking those questions, which are fantastic. They're challenging as well, aren't they? Because they are immediately inspirational, and then a few steps into that, it's like, yes, maybe I'm not, but why is that? And it sets off a whole new chain of realization, I suspect, for the people you work with if you put them through that particular process.
Carl, we kind of touched a little bit on this in, I think it was episode 18, and I mentioned this idea of Nancy Klein's incisive question. Stephen, if we took your questions, which, as Carl said, can be quite intimidating for people who don't feel remarkable, they're absolutely valid, but it's, can we slip them into it? So I've just reformed one into a statement rather than a question.
Okay.
So if I know I am truly living, how would that help me be remarkable? The grammar's awful, but the question is brilliant. It's not mine, it's Nancy's. Because it puts you in the role of somebody who is truly living. I'm going to play that role for a while. Now, what kind of people do I know in the world that are truly living? And what is it they do? And why is it that that makes them remarkable? Oh, I'll pick one of those things and I'll have a try at it. So if we can find ways of, it's like a gateway drug, to put it, I don't know, prosaically. How can we get people just to look over the lip at what it might be like to be their version of more remarkable? Because, you know, none of us are smarter than all of us. None of us are wiser than all of us. None of us are more remarkable than all of us.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to play the game of remarkability, or you don't think you can, then we diminish the overall thrust of our remarkable natures. So as with all of our guests, we ask you to provide some helpful questions that we then ask you. So I think we've covered the first one, which was, when did you first start becoming interested in the idea of legacy, positive echo? We've already dealt with that. You're in the world of publishing, as well as all the other things that you're in, because I know you love theatre as well. And what is it? What's your corner of publishing, would you say? What's your niche? Not necessarily subject niche, but what's your niche?
That is a really good question. That is a really good question. And what it leads me to think about is a young man called Rami Makazumi. Rami was a student on one of the emerging leaders programs I did at London Business School, and he actually didn't want to be there. This is an answer to your question, Gary, but bear with me for a second.
Would be the answer.
Rami was the son of a very successful entrepreneur, and he didn't want to join his dad's company. He really didn't want to, but his dad had said, well, you know, you should go and do this course at London Business School. And Rami didn't want to come on the course. And I, as you probably did, Gary, if you were working with people, you would interview people and, you know, make sure that they were right for what it is you wanted to do. And I spoke to him and I said, strikes me that you don't really want to do this course, do you? And he paused for a minute and said, you know what? No, I don't really see the need. I don't. And for the next 30 minutes, we talked about what he did want to do, how he did want to change the world. And it kind of became a joke between us, because after that 30 minutes of talking, much as we're talking now about what he did want to do, what he did want to accomplish, the possibilities open to him, he realized that he didn't have the knowledge to be able to do the things he wanted to do, because he started talking about being in his father's orbit, in his father's circle, but not in the company. And I think he realized that if he did join the company, he'd have far more opportunities to do the things he wanted to do. His initial reaction against, you know, wanting to join his dad's company was, I don't want to do what dad did. The amazing thing was that this became a joke between us on the program. You know, say, "How are you, Rami? Change the world," and it became an email sign off. He became CEO of the company when his father retired. He multiplied its.
I think we may have a little bit of a broadband difficulty with Norfolk just at the moment. Let's give Stephen a chance to come back. Oh, there we go. We've caught up again.
All right. Sorry about that. Norfolk is
no problem.
Notorious. I was just saying about Rami. Rami took over his dad's company, you know, increased its size 5 years on, and really attributed
Oh.
We played the Matrix, I can only show you the door, you're the one that has to walk through it. He was an amazing young man. And I said to him at a restaurant in Beirut where the family had a home, what is it you still want to do? And he said, I've sorted out the business. Now I'm going to change the world. And whoa. And, he did reach out to a lot of people. But at the age of 33, we were on the verge of launching a research company called the Tomorrow's Leaders Research Institute. He went to the gym and he burst a blood vessel in his head and he died 12 hours later. And he was 33. The worst part of this, the worst part of this story is young family, 3 young girls under 10, which, in a Muslim sense is amazing because young girls are, what they urge you to have. It was a terrible moment. And when I heard that news, my first thought was, how can I capture this guy's story? And I don't know quite what form of words I use, but to his mum and dad, I sent this message saying, when the time is right, would you let me write Rami's story? And to this day, Gary, this is the best piece of work I've ever done. I spoke to over 200 people, family, friends, colleagues, and it was just, when was the first time you met Rami? What did you do? What happened next? What happened next? Mm-hmm. So, Carl, to your process question, what I found is talking to people about what they've done, what they did next, not trying to help them articulate, could you describe what makes this remarkable? I don't ask those sorts of questions. No. I say, what did you do next? Why did you do that? How did you do that? When did you do that? Where did you do that? You ask all the sort of, I have 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and where. You ask all of those super basic questions to help people articulate what it is they did, what it is they do, what it is they want to do. What do you want to do now? Where do you want to go now? Why do you want to do those things? So my process and Gary, to your point about questioning, is helping people to articulate that or doing it for other people. So I think if I can maybe finesse your statement questions, your intentional questions, Gary, that you were mentioning earlier from Nancy Klein, maybe a way of helping people articulate their legacy is to kind of narrow the focus down a little bit. So, of course, we have our legacy to our family and our friends and all of those close, tight-knit things, the things that we traditionally think of as legacy. But also we have a legacy to the profession of which we're a part if we're in business. I'm an accountant or a lawyer. Which bit of that profession is a pebble in your shoe? Which bit irritates you? And you think, that shouldn't be the way it is. Maybe that it could be a part of your legacy if you want to, if you're still in business, in work, if you're thinking, I hated this or I hated that, tackle it. Do something different about it. So it's not just your profession, it's the industry or the sector that you inhabit. Yeah. What is weak or wrong, or what is the pebble in your shoe about the community, the professional community that you serve? And another way of cutting this, of course, is your hometown, your region where you live. And of course, that's anybody who, not if maybe you're not in business anymore or you've never been in business. There's something in your area. And we see this here in the village where I live. There are people who are absolutely passionate about road safety. And they're out there every day with the cameras and they're trying to make a difference about something that they really, really care about. And then you've got someone like Rami who wants to change the world in some way. So he went to speak in America, stood on stages talking about, Barack Obama was saying at the time that, we need young people to get involved, and he was saying, we're here. So I think to both of your questions, how can we be more remarkable? We need to ask ourselves these very pertinent questions about what is it that I'm doing, and where's the pebble in my shoe, and how can I do something about that? I'm going to pause now. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, really good. I do want to ask you about communities. Well, yeah, that is perfect. Thank you. We do have other comments that have come in as well. Alan in Massachusetts, good morning. Finally up to catch one of these again. Is this live? Yes, it is at the moment. Duck22 as well, bon dia to you, who agrees most people are waiting for something. If only I had. And perhaps if I could refer to it as such, the laxative you've described, or it might be the what gets things moving there. It's important to enjoy the ride. The journey is key and makes perfect sense. Some of what we've been saying makes perfect sense to Duck22 there, T Duck. And when did he die? Talking of Rami, I think, and relating to your what you were telling us about Rami. When did he go? Stephen?
So he died in 2011, so virtually 15 years ago now. So he would have been 40, coming up 50. And you kind of think in your 30s you're functioning at peak energy, aren't you? You've learnt all the things that you were going to learn about what it is you do, the skill set that you need. And in your 30s, you're really driving forward. In your 40s, you're sort of taking advantage of the network and the people and the infrastructure that you personally have built, your own network, your own community. And so I think that 15 years is such a loss, such a loss to the world. And so that's one of the reasons why, Jackie and my wife and I wanted to write this book, The CEO's Journey. I'm going to flash it up here because
please do. Let me give you full screen so you can
look at that. His just such a young man at the pinnacle of his career. And anyway, this, and I think it was because it was, researched and written with love. It made a difference, and it still to this day, people out of the blue make contact and say, the stories that people were telling, they share such gratitude that we had captured that. So I think, Gary, to one of your earlier points as well about, I beg your pardon, it was Carl, I think, asking about process and touching people's emotions. It's about, I don't think it's about being afraid of emotionality. I'm sure you've touched on in some of the podcasts, I can't remember which one, about emotional intelligence and about I get quite angry about people who say, leave your personal life at the door. We are completely driven by our personal life and how emotionally we feel. But I'm going to pause on that one and say, 15 years ago, miss him every day. Think about him every day.
Absolutely. I can understand why. We also, in another aspect of your legacy work, if I can refer to it as that, is the legacy journal. And so I'd love to find out a bit more about that and how that works and how that can help people.
The legacy journal, so many people, came to us following the workshops that we've done, in a sense like Gary, and wanted to know more. So Jackie and I basically sat down and wrote down all our questions. So to your question, Carl, about what's the process, we put it all in the book. So there are questions about how do you unpack your commercial legacy, your personal legacy, your professional legacy. And so we tried to do it in a very, we hope, an entertaining way. So there's some great pictures. So while you're thinking of answers to some of these questions, I suppose it's a process of self-reflection. So you've kind of got Jackie and me on your shoulder, thinking through what is it, that how did I truly live? How am I loving? So the book is a way to sort of start that conversation. And if anybody wanted to go and get hold of a copy, very happy for you to share that link, and of course, please make sure you give them a discount from us. We'd like to put these questions into so many people's hands.
Yes, we've got a code, so you can use that link, but we'll give you a code in the chat as well, in the comments for the episode, so that people can take advantage of that discount you're offering there as well. So really appreciate that. One more, if I may. Community seems very important with this to be among others on the same journey. What would you suggest about that? I think it's never been easier in some ways to get together via social media, WhatsApp groups. Do you suggest tools or frameworks in which people can work together to get the best out of themselves and each other?
It's this word community is so powerful and so misunderstood in so many ways.
Yes.
I think getting together is so easy, but having a purpose to get together is the thing that makes all the difference. So I think it's a way of a way I would suggest is find other people somehow that share your vision and create your own community. I'm not convinced that there are enough places like Positive Echo and the Positive Echo community. Maybe there is a mechanism here for you guys to encourage people to, engage with each other, with, you guys, with some of the guests that you have, because people have questions. And we can't always be live, as you've got some wonderful guests on now. But I would urge you to reflect on how can you be, the sand, the item, the grain of sand in the oyster, and see Positive Echo become a stronger community, even stronger for the future. Because I don't see many ways of supporting people. Gary, maybe you have something on this, but at the end of our programs at London Business School, somehow people would self-organize. Some of them would stay together for a short period of time, but we tried to stay out of that. And the reason I think we tried to stay out of that, at least the story that was given to me, is we're friends for a short period of time on your journey. It is your journey. And so we would encourage people to self-organize, keep in touch with each other. But so few stayed together for a very long time. Yeah. So I don't know, on reflection, whether we should have been more proactive about that. And so that's why I'm a bit uncertain about how you would go forward with Positive Echo.
I'll give you an example of a self-organizing group that is becoming global. And it's called Advantages of Age.
Okay.
Right.
I can't reach my pen.
It's for people over the age of 50 who aren't sitting in the waiting room. They are unapologetic about their age. They have a Substack group. They have a Facebook group. They have different groups that are part of this main group all over the UK mainly. And it kind of changed my life because I attended their award ceremony and I won an award, but less of that this time. But it changed my life because I'd begun to be kind of in a knot. I was a very happy knot. But I think they've made me look at the world differently. Mm. So my dream for the Positive Echo is not for me to be controlling it, managing it, that it becomes self-sustaining. So there'll be groups of people in Manitoba who say, you know what, we should form a Positive Echo group. Great, go and do it. I don't want any of it. Yeah. We might give some suggestions, guidance, ask those kind of questions that you were asking people about how to become remarkable. Anyway, out of this came this thought. What if you considered all of your life up to the time just before you're thinking of retiring, and you took all of the skills you had, all of the life skills, none of the technical skills, just the life skills, and imagined you were about to apply for your first job, and that job is retirement. What would you bring to retirement, and what kind of retirement would you apply for? And that's really, have I got the right retirement at the moment? I think I have. But you can be a remarkable retiree. You don't have to just be a remarkable worker.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds like there should be retirement counsellors now, possibly as a
Oh, they're
spin-off.
out. Don't worry, they're out.
Are there such things? Yeah, of course there are.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course
yeah.
There is a really, really good book by Dan Haylett about this, and I can't reach it for now, but I will post it in the chat later on. And it's very much about, retirement. The second act, your second act, if you like, isn't so much about, what do I do with the money and all that. It's about finding a purpose. So it's exactly on the topic of what we've been exploring today. I suppose, before we wrap up, I don't know how much time you've got, but the thing that I want to say is people are remarkable. Anyway, so in a sense, I also want to just round off certainly my contribution with this idea that this is not about trying to be something different or something other necessarily. It's just if you feel there is a gap, am I truly living peace? So we are all remarkable. Of course we are. And we don't have to be anything else. But maybe part of this is, to your point, Gary, about being remarkable in our own minds to ourselves.
Yes.
And so that, I think, is the key message I would urge you to take away is everyone's remarkable. We're all amazing. But are we remarkable to ourselves? Do we feel there is a gap or not? So one of the beautiful spin-offs of working on becoming more remarkable, or what's your legacy, of finding your legacy, is actually finding it out for yourself and believing that you have and are still making a difference. So I think there's a spin-off, and it's sort of, I don't know how when you were teaching, Gary, you get to the end of the program, it's very difficult to write this stuff in a brochure. You can't sort of put this stuff in a brochure and say, this is what we'll be doing at 9:30, 10:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So always, Gary, the workshops that we had were very much around, we're going to teach you this, or we're going to explore that. And it was only through the discussion later that kind of I felt that we'd got permission to explore some of these questions that you're asking now explicitly in the Positive Echo podcast.
It's
so I think
permission thing.
I beg your pardon?
It's the permission thing. Yeah.
That's a really good way of interpreting that. Yes. So that for me is ultimately where we come, is to help people realize they're already remarkable. You're already doing amazing things. And maybe we just need a process to help people realize, I'm doing okay. I'm doing a really, really great job. There are some other things I could do. Finesse that around the edges. But so I don't know. I'm going to shut up now. Does that make sense?
I think that's a perfect note to conclude on. Like it's kind of, we're all remarkable. Let's act like it and know it for ourselves.
Fantastic.
And thanks, Stephen, for being with us. I hope you'll come back and chat with us again. And thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it. I'm sure if anyone looks up Stephen Sonsino, they'll find you online and find more about your work. And I hope you'll come back and talk to us again. Gary, Stephen mentioned oysters and grains of sand. I think this is that was very, very good. A very, very nice segue there. What have you got for us by way of
not only oysters, but Norfolk?
Really? Okay. How bizarre is that? Okay. So we're looking at a bit of positive news to finish with. What have we got?
So it's in positive news. I love this place. They're basically taking on this gigantic project of reseeding the coastline of Norfolk with clay pots that have got baby oysters in them. And I'm not just talking little tiny, 50-meter things. They're building entire reefs across the seabed, gigantic reefs, with the purpose of using them to filter out toxins that are released into the sea from the land. And they're not looking at harvesting the oysters. They're using them for toxic chemical capture in the shells. And it just happens I used to work on that kind of thing right way back in my beginning of my biomedical science career. Oysters do, and all sorts of bivalves do the same thing. They take up the dirty water and they manage to encase it in the shell.
And then we eat it. Right.
So you don't want to be eating the oysters.
No,
Yeah?
okay, yes. Whatever letters in the month, do not eat these particular oysters. What a fabulous idea, though! And we'll put the
They
link
change
to that in the chat.
over time. They'll grow and grow and grow and build their own reef from the dead shells, you know, the dead oyster shells, and it holds and captures this and puts it away forever.
Fantastic, fantastic. A positive echo for sure there. Thank you for joining us. Those of you who did, T-Duck, an interesting show, gentlemen. Thank you very much. We'll need to leave it there. Yeah, don't eat the shell. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Stephen. Thanks, Gary. And I hope you'll join us again someday soon, Stephen, and we can catch up again and talk more about the wonderful subjects we've been discussing today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll see you probably after Christmas, won't we, Gary?
We will. It will be after Christmas now.
All right. All the best.
A long time down.
And bye for now. Ciao, ciao.